The United States has condemned the enactment of the national security law. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says Washington will not stand idly by. Jim Spellman joins me now with the latest. Jim, strong reactions there. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, widespread condemnation coming from Republicans and Democrats. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, top Democrat in the U.S. Congress, is condemning this law. On the Republican side, no direct reaction yet from President Trump, but Secretary of State Pompeo coming out with a statement calling this, quote, a sad day for Hong Kong. He says that this law destroys the autonomy of the Hong Kong SAR and says it is a move based on Beijing's paranoia and fear. We have to keep in mind there are similar laws in place in the United States. Of course, terrorism is against the law, and acting to overthrow the government through violence or assassination is against the law. But what critics of Beijing here in the U.S. point out is that the freedom of speech of people who hold unpopular opinions, even against the current government, those speech is protected. Take something like secession. There's actually a handful of U.S. states that have active political parties trying to succeed, trying to leave the United States. Alaska even had a governor from a party that pushed that back in the 1990s. So these people say that the speech is protected here in the U.S. They would like those same protections around the globe. But keep in mind, one thing critics of U.S. foreign policy point out is that it's hypocritical for President Trump or Republicans now to be criticizing this law while President Trump is calling for a crackdown on protesters here even as we speak. They also point to the long history of abuse of prisoners and other things of that nature during the U.S. war on terror. Gas?
But Jim, given this condemnation from U.S. politicians, this is probably going to open up another front in bilateral tensions. How bad can this get? And what are the implications for Hong Kong?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, Secretary of State Pompeo threatening future actions in addition to the visa restrictions that are already in place on some Chinese officials regarding this issue, as well as the U.S. move to strip Hong Kong of much of its special trade protection. Not clear what the next round of reaction will be from the U.S., but it's bound to increase the tension. Joe Biden, the presumptive Democratic nominee who will run against President Trump, he's claiming that he will put more sanctions in place if he wins the election. I think a big question here is how far is President Trump willing to go, knowing that escalating this could put the trade deal at risk? And another big question, of course, is how will all of this change after the election? Regardless of whether President Trump wins re-election or Joe Biden wins, the whole nature of this is bound to change, since so much of what's happening in the U.S. right now is focused on that election. Gas?
All right, thanks, Jim. Always a pleasure speaking with you.